Funding for Lawmakers comes from
the University of West Georgia in Carrollton, ensuring a better life for Georgians in the 21st century. More than 100 programs of study prepare students for successful careers in the critical professions of education and nursing, as well as business and the liberal arts. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of Georgia's business community, over 4,000 members strong, working with lawmakers for over 90 years to make sure that our state remains a place where companies thrive.
And by supporters of Georgia Public Broadcasting. Thank you.
Coming up on Lawmakers, the federal stimulus bill is signed. Governor Perdue, Lieutenant Governor Cagle, and Speaker Richardson talk about the impact here in Georgia. The House votes to reconsider their action on legislation that could allow voters to decide to freeze property tax assessments. And GPB completes the transition to digital television. We talk with Assistant General Manager Bob Olive. Those stories and more are coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers. Here are your anchors, Nwandi Lawson and David Zelski.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, GPB Radio News Director Susanna Capelouto joins us to talk about the lack of science teachers graduating from Georgia's universities.
And peanut producers join forces with legislators to make the case for the safety of peanut products. But first, our top story tonight, the federal stimulus and Georgia's budget. Well, earlier today, Governor Perdue adjusted state revenue projections downward for the 09 fiscal year, increasing the current budget shortfall of $2.2 billion by an additional $450 million. Georgia will soon receive help from Washington with the signing of President Obama's stimulus bill. Lawmakers' Valerie Edwards is live and reports on the future of those federal dollars here in Georgia. Valerie.
David, it's anticipated $6.6 billion will be headed our way from the nation's capital. Without providing specific details, the governor hinted his priorities will be health care, education, transportation, and public safety. What is known is that $465 million is targeted to help bridge the Medicare funding gap. And with the signing of House Bill 143, additional monies will go to funding the homeowners tax relief grant. And with the signing of House Bill 143, additional monies will go to funding the Homeowners Tax Relief Grant. But this will be the final year for the HTRG, a program the governor has described as ineffective.
I do believe it has degenerated into nothing more than a supplement to local governments. And local governments as a whole have taken their tax revenues increasing, plus the grants, and have grown larger by the year. Frankly, local governments, through the scheme that was set up in this HTRG, simply forced the state to shoulder most of the burden of the budgeting in lean and good times.
Here's a visual at what the governor is talking about, and this information comes from the governor's office. This chart shows the average yearly growth rate of local versus state property and sales tax. As you can see, the collection of local taxes has grown at a rate of nearly 3.5 times that of state tax collection. Also, despite the infusion of federal dollars, there will be more cuts to the governor's budget. He's going back to the state agencies, some of which have already slashed their budgets by up to 10%. And this time around, the governor will ask the agencies to cut an additional 1% from their budgets. Now, coming up this Friday, Senate Minority Leader Robert Brown will hold a hearing on how cuts to agency budgets are already affecting local residents.
What's happening to, for example, in the Department of Children's Services? Are you seeing an increase in your enrollment? Have you had to change your objectives? What's actually going on with folk who are recipients of your services? My greatest fear is on two levels. One, that we will not be very smart with the way we spend the money that's coming in. And number two, that the people who have the greatest need will ultimately not be served.
It was apparent the tough news Governor Perdue had for us today was tough news for him to deliver. At one point when the governor spoke of future fiscal responsibility, he mentioned his grandchildren and said he hoped they would have to show in the future, they would have something to show in the future from the steps taken today. Reporting live, I'm Valerie Edwards for Lawmakers.
Thanks for that report, Valerie. The House today voted to keep two measures capping property taxes in play. Last Thursday, House Resolution 1 failed to gain the two-thirds majority needed to put the question of whether to cap property tax increases at 3% on the November 2010 ballot. This morning, Representative Ed Lindsay asked the House to reconsider that vote.
A motion for reconsideration would have the effect of sending the resolution back to the Rules Committee to determine if it advances again. All those in favor of the gentleman's motion, the House reconsider its action and failing to give a constitutional majority, House Resolution 1 will vote yes. All those opposed, no. It will require a majority of a quorum only.
By a vote of 101 to 58, the House agreed to reconsider H.R. 1, sending that bill back to House Rules. Next, Representative David Lucas asked the House to reconsider its passage of H.B. 233, a two-year property tax cap. Democrats challenged the constitutionality of that bill, bringing this response from Speaker Richardson.
After a careful review and analysis, one of the few areas that I've actually practiced extensively for 25 years is in that area of the law. And I reviewed it carefully because I wanted to make sure myself. I have provided an opinion, and so has Mr. Walraven. We believe it is a constitutional provision for this reason. It applies to all classes in the entire real property arena. And my best opinion is I don't know who would challenge it.
The House voted 58 to 104 against reconsidering HB 233, so that measure now moves to the Senate. Well, politics does indeed make for unusual alliances. Today, young Democrats and young Republicans joined forces under the Gold Dome in support of legislation that would legalize Sunday alcohol sales. Senate Bill 16, sponsored by Senator Seth Harp, would allow counties or municipalities to decide whether to allow retailers to sell alcohol on Sundays. That measure has bipartisan support in the Senate and is currently in the Senate Regulated Industries Committee. Now, House Majority Leader Jerry Keene told reporters last week that he believes the bill will be approved by the House if the Senate adopts it.
The Senate today approved Senate Bill 58 and Senate Bill 4. Senator Dan Weber sponsors Senate Bill 58, which deals with provisions for the delivery of services and disposition of properties in new municipalities. However, Senator Steve Henson raised questions about the need for this legislation. Senator Weber begins.
It's a general bill that applies to any part of the state, any county where there's a new municipality. So as of today, this legislation would apply only to DeKalb County and the new city of Dunwoody. When a new city incorporates, that new city under our state constitution has what's called home rule. The city is responsible for providing certain services, including zoning, police, and parks. If the city is obligated to provide park services, the city ought to have control of the parks that are in its jurisdiction.
The bill, though again well-meaning and written to try to be fair, does set timelines and situations that could be problematic in certain cases and probably don't need to be defined in a bill unless, again, compelled. We have a new county government in DeKalb County, a new CEO, who has reached out and is trying to work to resolve this issue. And I would ask that you all today decide to hold Senate Bill 58 from passing until we see a compelling need.
Now, even with Senator Henson's opposition, Senate Bill 58 did pass 32 to 16 and now goes over to the House. Well, also in the Senate today, SB 4, sponsored by Senator Gloria Butler, would require constables or marshals to notify protected persons upon service of protective orders. Senator Butler explains.
Senate Bill 4 is legislation that offers protection for victims of family violence as it pertains to the safety of a person that is experiencing violence in the home. The bill requires notification to the victim. The victim has to request notification, and they also have to leave a phone number or email where they can be located.
SB 4 passed 49 to 0 as amended and also goes over to the House.
Well, in the House today, they voted to make it easier to get a flu shot. Representative Jimmy Pruitt said last year's decision by the Composite Board of Medical Examiners to require a physician's prescription for a flu shot endangered public health. He presented House Bill 217 on behalf of Governor Perdue.
And basically, back in the spring, we had some problems with the Attorney General's opinion of how we were actually giving flu shots. He determined that we had to have a prescription for every flu shot that was given. So in order to bypass that in the economic times that we're in today and the frustrations we have with trying to get everybody a shot that needs one, we don't want to have anybody have limited access. So this bill would change that to a point to where a physician could actually do a protocol, and he could give that protocol to a pharmacy or a registered nurse, and then they could actually administer the flu shot basically legally.
HB 217 passed 160-3 and now moves to the Senate. The House also approved a measure allowing attorneys to transmit certain legal documents via email. House Bill 29 passed 152-7 and also moves to the Senate. And finally, the House also voted to require technical colleges to consult the legislature before consolidating or closing any campus. Representative Bush Parrish sponsors HB 294 in response to campus closings in the Swainsboro area. He was asked whether these consolidations would in fact save the state money.
I think one of the issues that's going to be very difficult to put a dollar cost to, and I don't know how you can do it in dollars and cents, but the negative effect and the support that these schools are going to lose within those communities that were consolidated over their objections.
House Ways and Means Chair Larry O'Neill asked whether the measure could be used to undo the current mergers.
This would normally take effect July the 1st and would only be prospective. That we couldn't do anything about that now. If the board were to decide, I suppose, to rescind their action or make some changes, possibly the board could do it.
HB 294 passed with an amendment to require legislative approval when a two-year college merges with a technical school. The vote was 158-1, and that measure now moves to the Senate.
Claims that the legislature is putting Georgia Power's needs ahead of the needs of our veterans continues to be a talking point for Senate Democratic leader Robert Brown. He took the well this morning to present a resolution dealing with a particular veteran housing issue.
When you make a mistake, what do? Do you just wallow in your mistake? Do you just remain as though nothing has happened? Or do you try to make it good? I'm going to try to make it good this morning. I'm going to ask each and every member of this body to join in with me. I'm going to draw up a joint resolution apologizing to the veterans and promising them, especially that World War II veteran, anywhere he wants to live in Georgia, whether it's a penthouse in Buckhead or a sugar shack in South Georgia, he can do it. And I want each member in here to sign it. I want to start with the veterans. I don't want to be the first name. I want the oldest veteran to sign first, and descend in order down to the youngest veteran. After that, I want the spouses of veterans to sign. After that, I want the daughters and the sons of veterans to sign. And I beg you, please, let me be number 56.
Senator Renee Unterman also took the well this morning to discuss two issues. Number one was a response to Senator Brown's concerns you just heard about veteran housing.
There's always two sides to every coin. And the senator that previously was up here talking about the War Veterans Home, I'd like to say the senator from down in South Atlanta, the senator from the 25th, and I have worked religiously on the war veterans and the domiciliary and the closing of the domiciliary since October of last year. We have been working with the Veterans Administration in the state of Georgia Veterans Administration, tracking every single one of those veterans and making sure that they're diligently taken care of.
Senator Unterman also took a moment to discuss ethics legislation dealing with campaign disclosures.
Before me, I have a bill that every senator in this room is interested in, and I would like to get every senator to sign it. It's a bill in the Ethics Committee, and it's regarding your campaign disclosure. Right now, in the state of Georgia, you not only have to do your e-filing, but you have to take your campaign disclosure to your county courthouse. I know for me, I have to take a half a day off from work to drive to Lawrenceville, which is my county seat, and take my campaign disclosure over there. It's redundant now that we're on the internet and everyone in the world literally has access to this. There's no need to have a campaign disclosure filed at the county courthouse and clog up their files.
In his remarks at the Eggs and Issues breakfast at the beginning of the 2009 session, Governor Sonny Perdue noted that Georgia's universities are producing very few science teachers. We now bring you an in-depth look at this issue, beginning with the governor's announcement on January 13th.
Last year, ladies and gentlemen, do you realize that our state produced just 3 physics teachers?
And joining me now to discuss this issue is GPB's radio news director, Susanna Capilouto, who went to UGA and Georgia Tech and some high schools around the state. Susanna, what have you found out?
Well, David, you know, anytime you hear the governor say that we had only 3 physics teachers, the obvious question you have to ask yourself is, who are they? So we did some checking, and we got a list from the governor's office, and we called one of them who teaches now in Gwinnett County, and we found out that he actually graduated a couple of years ago. So the numbers the governor used weren't quite right, but then again, we also found out they were pretty close because we do have very few physics teachers graduating each year. It's between 3 and 6 each year from Georgia universities, which is really not a lot. And so we kind of dug a little deeper and we wanted to know why that is. Why so few physics teachers?
And so what are some of the reasons behind this shortage?
It's of course, there is a lot of stigma attached to teaching science among scientists. We found at Georgia Tech that one of the students there who is thinking about becoming a teacher has told us that she'd been repeatedly told, you are too smart to teach. And we thought about going to Georgia Tech because that's, of course, where in Georgia we have most of our scientists. But it turns out Georgia Tech, of course, doesn't have a college of education. They're an engineering school. So what they have started this year, or a couple of years ago, they have a program called Tech to Teach. And that's a program that takes those scientists who are maybe have an inkling towards teaching and sort of steers them to other universities, and they partner with other universities in the Atlanta area to get them a teaching degree. So, you know, their goal, I think, is after this year they want to turn 20 to 30 of their students into science teachers. We'll see if that kind of program works.
And that would be a huge boost, and possibly you talked about summer programs as well, things like that.
Exactly. What we found out, one of the teachers we had called, Matthew Beck is his name, he was one of the 3 the governor referred to. He came to teaching late in life, and most science teachers we find come to the profession after a career in the business, and they realize, oh, maybe I should go back to teaching, and there are so many other ways to be certified as a teacher, and that's where most scientists come from, science teachers come from. They don't really go through the typical route of, you know, a 4-year teaching degree and then get certified as teachers.
All right. Well, GPB Radio News Director Susanna Capilouto, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, David. And I do want to remind you that we will have these stories on GPB's Georgia Gazette starting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m.
A new breed of cop car caught eyes outside the Capitol last Thursday. This prototype vehicle from Atlanta-based manufacturer Carbon Motors runs on diesel and biodiesel and is specifically designed to fit the needs of law enforcement officers. Senator Eric Johnson of Savannah explains.
There's a company called Carbon Motors, and it's a homeland security company. His executives have spent dozens of years in the car manufacturing and designing business, and they are here in Georgia, and I wanted to make sure that you knew about them and that we could do everything we could to help them. Ever since 9/11, there has not been a specifically designed, a purpose-built law enforcement vehicle. Now think about that. There are ambulances, there are fire trucks, there are garbage trucks, there are postal, all designed for use, but law enforcement has to buy a Crown Victoria or another vehicle, now a Charger, and put a lot of equipment on it that they're not designed to handle. They're unsafe, the technology doesn't work often, so the Carbon Motors idea is to take a purpose-built law enforcement vehicle for our men and women that protect us.
Since 1971, every one of the approximately 1,500 Lawmakers broadcasts has been transmitted over Georgia Educational Televisions, Georgia Public Televisions, and now Georgia Public Broadcasting's analog transmitters. Today, Lawmakers program will be the last ever broadcast over the analog spectrum. GPB is permanently shutting down its analog transmitters tonight at midnight. Earlier, I talked with Bob Olive, GPB's Assistant General Manager, about why GPB is making this change now, since the federal digital transmission deadline has been extended to June.
You know, Nwandi, it's really one of economics more than anything else. We looked at the budget, and to maintain 9 analog transmitters for another 4 months was going to cost us in electricity cost close to $400,000, and that doesn't count the cost of any of those transmitters going down in the meantime and needing repairs. We've been pretty good stewards of public funds, and some of those transmitters are almost 40 years old. Wow. And we're just not sure they're going to limp until June. So we think for economic reasons and to save Georgians money and save our members money, our best bet is to make the transition now.
Well, certainly on the exciting side, we're all looking forward to what the new transmission looks like. As a viewer at home, what can we expect from this? You're
going to see sharper pictures. You're going to hear better sound. It really is a whole new era, a whole new world, and we're really excited about that. Now, initially, you won't see anything because we're going to shut off the analog transmitters right around midnight tonight, and then with many of the digital transmitters, we've got to increase their power. With some of them, we've got to rechannelize different channels. So we'll have them down for anywhere between a few minutes to a couple of hours to several hours overnight tonight. But tomorrow morning, they'll be up and looking great.
That's fantastic. Now, obviously, the fear that some people have, though, is that they're going to tune in and there's going to be some sort of a technical glitch to them being able to get the channel. Well, what should they do in those cases?
They can give us a call at 1-800-222-4788. Or they can go online and write an email to ask@gpb.org. We're here to help, Nwandi. We want to help everyone to see us and use us, and to the best of our ability, we'll help them get that signal.
I'm sure that some of the programming that they enjoy here, they're looking forward to seeing that, particularly in some really crisp definition.
Yeah. And remember that they're not only getting wonderful high definition on our main channel, but they're getting 2 additional channels, GPB Kids and GPB Knowledge, which perhaps they haven't seen before. One 24/7 kids and parenting, the other 24/7 public affairs, documentaries, great information and education. So we're excited about that.
Well, very good. Bob Olive, thank you so much for sharing that information with us here.
Thanks for having me, Nwandi.
You can, of course, continue to watch Lawmakers and all the rest of GPB's programming using digital transmitters or on your local cable or satellite provider.
9 o'clock to 10 o'clock this morning was the Peanut Power Hour at the Capitol, where members of the House and Senate reassured the public that peanut products are safe to eat. Lawmakers Alan Friedman reports.
The current salmonella outbreak linked to peanut products from a Blakely, Georgia plant has many consumers staying far away from any food with peanut ingredients. So today at the Capitol, lobbyists and members of the House and Senate Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee gave out peanut snacks in hopes of sending the message that peanut products are safe to eat. Senate Committee Chairman Senator John Bullock.
You know, we've had a very unfortunate situation with a processor that allowed for some tainted product to leave his plant, and we're just trying to show today that there are so many products out there that are great products that are wholesome, great source of protein, and they're safe.
Representative Kevin Levitas of the House Committee of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs demonstrated the safety of peanut products by having a little himself.
Don't hesitate to eat peanut products. Peanut products in the state of Georgia are great. They are delicious. I can hardly wait to dig into this jar I have in front of me. They are perfectly safe, good, and very, very healthy.
The main message of the people that I spoke to today was that peanut butter products are both safe and delicious. Now, whether or not that message effectively reaches consumers is a matter that's yet to be seen. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Alan Friedman.
Senator Vincent Fort, Martina Correa, the sister of Georgia death row inmate Troy Davis, and supporters gathered in the rotunda at the Capitol in support of a moratorium on the death penalty. Lawmakers' Andrea Hummel-Shelton has more on that story.
Public concern that racial and socioeconomic factors influence decisions to seek or impose the death penalty and there is a lack of any meaningful procedure to ensure uniform application of the death penalty in each county throughout the state. In order for the state to protect its moral and ethical integrity, the state must ensure a justice system which is impartial, uncorrupted, equitable, and competent.
We are going to be a state that kills people. We need to make sure that we are always right. We need to make sure that we are always fair. We cannot choose finality over fairness. We only want to protect our system. But people see that when you're protecting a system that's unjust and unjust, it exposes itself.
Sarah Tatanchi, chair of Georgians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, took the opportunity to encourage legislators to vote against House Bill 32. That legislation would allow the imposition of the death penalty by a jury with a 10-2 vote.
Today, we have spoken to our representatives to ask them to vote no on House Bill 32, which would weaken our system by allowing for divided juries to result in death sentences.
Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Andrea Hummel-Shelton.
U.S. Senator Johnny Isakson was under the Gold Dome today to announce his re-election bid, but first he stopped by the House of Representatives to reminisce with some of his former colleagues.
I sat right there in that seat on the edge for 14 years in the Georgia House of Representatives and loved every minute of it. It's a great experience, not quite as good as my marriage of 41 years to Diane, who's with me today. So we'll work together with you, Saxby and I, to see to it we do everything to help stimulate our economy, to help work our way through difficult times, to look forward to better times. We live in the greatest country in the world, and we live in the greatest state in the greatest country of the world. And I am just very proud to be a Georgian, an American, and an alumni of the Georgia House of Representatives. God bless all of you.
Senate Bill 63, an insurance measure that exempts certain institutions of higher education from the requirements of multiple employer self-insured health plans, passed the Senate last Thursday, but not without a flurry of questions from fellow senators. However, few of those questions for the bill's sponsor, Senator Jim Butterworth, were actually necessary. Of course, these kind of questions are to be expected when a freshman senator presents his or her first bill.
Is the senator familiar with Title 29, Section 1001 of the United States Code?
Title 29 of the United States Code? No, sir, I am not.
The senator should be. It's in the bill you authored.
Isn't it true that the only reason that you became a senator was because that you were jealous and tired of playing second fiddle to Miss Butterworth?
No, sir, that's not true. I have actually resigned myself to the fact that I will play second fiddle to my wife for the rest of my life.
You have changed the word "thee" to the word "this." I wonder, Senator, if you could tell me what, I don't know, perhaps you are aware of the parts of speech. What part of speech is the word "thee"?
Well, I will have to admit that definitely is not a question that I'm prepared to answer, Senator.
And Senator Staten went on to clarify that there are actually 9 parts of speech, adding that the word "thee" is an article and the word "this" is, of course, a demonstrative pronoun.
Well, coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, we'll continue our leadership interview series with Senate Majority Leader Chip Rogers. We'll have that story and more tomorrow night on Lawmakers at 7 p.m. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.